Let me be straight with you right now. SMR stocks may be the most explosive part of the nuclear trade, but they may also be the easiest place for retail investors to get trapped. Because not every nuclear stock is the same trade. Some are real infrastructure plays, some are fuel chain plays, and some are pure speculation riding the AI power narrative. So before you chase the loudest ticker on the screen, understand what this video is really about. This is not a blind buy nuclear hype video. This is a ranking of 5 nuclear stocks from highest risk moonshot to strongest risk-reward watchlist name. And the key question is simple. Which nuclear stock has the best balance between narrative, execution, and risk? If you want to track the next layer of the AI trade before retail starts chasing it late, subscribe to Stock Breakout, hit the like button, and drop the nuclear ticker you think has the best risk-reward right now. Because the first AI trade was chips, the next AI trade may be power. AI data centers are not just creating demand for GPUs, servers, networking, and cooling. They're creating demand for electricity. Massive electricity, reliable electricity, stable electricity, long-term electricity, and ideally, electricity that can run around the clock without depending on weather, sunlight, or wind patterns. That is why nuclear power is suddenly back in the market conversation. For years, nuclear was treated like an old energy story. Slow, political, expensive, complicated. But AI has changed the conversation. Because when the world starts building data centers that need huge amounts of 24/7 power, investors start looking at energy sources that can actually support that load. That is the big picture setup. The obvious AI trade is still chips. The second-order AI trade may be the grid, power generation, uranium, fuel supply, nuclear components, and small modular reactors. SMR stands for small modular reactor. In simple terms, traditional nuclear plants are massive, expensive, and slow to build. SMRs are designed to be smaller, more modular, and potentially easier to deploy. The dream is flexible nuclear power for utilities, industrial sites, military bases, remote infrastructure, and maybe one day, power-hungry data centers. That is why the story is so powerful. But here is the part retail investors cannot ignore. The promise is not the same thing as commercial reality. SMR commercialization is difficult. Timelines can be long. Regulatory approvals can take years. Financing needs can be huge. Projects can get delayed. Costs can move higher. Customer commitments can change. And some companies may have limited near-term revenue compared with the size of the story being priced into the stock. The narrative is powerful, but the execution risk is real. That brings us to the 5-stock watch list. Nano-nuclear energy, ticker NNE. Oklo, ticker Oklo. NuScale Power, ticker SMR. BWXT Technologies, ticker BWXT. And Cameco, ticker CCJ. These are not the same trade. NNE is the most speculative retail moonshot. Oklo is one of the highest attention advanced nuclear narratives. SMR is the most obvious ticker for anyone searching small modular reactors. BWXT is a more mature nuclear infrastructure and defense-related supplier. And CCJ is not an SMR company at all, but it may be one of the more realistic fuel chain beneficiaries if nuclear demand keeps rising. Let's start with NNE. Nanonuclear energy may have the strongest moonshot energy on this list. The company describes itself as building a diversified nuclear business across portable and stationary microreactors, nuclear fuel fabrication, nuclear fuel transportation, space nuclear applications, and consulting. That is a massive story, and that is exactly why retail traders pay attention. When SMR headlines heat up, a name like NNE can move fast because it has the right ingredients for a speculative market. Small cap energy, nuclear, microreactors, fuel chain language, AI power optionality, and a ticker that fits the theme. But this is also why investors need to be careful. NNE is not a mature nuclear cash flow machine. It is a high-risk development stage story where execution, funding, commercialization, and valuation all matter. The upside narrative may be huge, but the risk of the stock being driven more by story than near-term fundamentals is also huge. So NNE may have the strongest moonshot energy, but it also has the highest risk of being driven more by narrative than near-term fundamentals. Next is Oklo. Oklo is one of the cleanest advanced nuclear narratives in the public market. The company says it is designing and deploying advanced fission power plants to provide clean, reliable, affordable energy, and it also describes its Aurora powerhouse as a next-generation fission system. That is exactly the kind of story the market wants to hear right now. Advanced nuclear, clean baseload power, potential data center demand, industrial power, long-term electricity contracts, and a future where AI infrastructure needs power sources that can run all day, every day. Oklo may be rewarded by the market before the business fully matures, because markets often price big technology stories before the income statement catches up. But investors need to understand the trade-off. A great story does not remove timeline risk. Advanced nuclear still depends on regulatory progress, project execution, customer adoption, financing, and actual deployment. So Oklo may be one of the strongest narratives in the group. But narrative strength is not the same as low risk. Now let's talk about NuScale Power, ticker SMR. This is the most obvious ticker in the entire nuclear watch list. If a retail investor types SMR stock into a search bar, NuScale is probably one of the first names they find. That matters. The ticker itself gives the stock attention. NuScale is closely associated with small modular reactor commercialization, and the company says its NuScale Power Module is an SMR technology with design approval. Reuters also reported in 2025 that the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission approved NuScale's updated 77-megawatt SMR design, while also noting the earlier cancellation of its first Utah project after rising costs and declining municipal interest. That is the NuScale story in one sentence. Real SMR credibility, but still major commercial proof needed. SMR has the cleanest ticker and the most direct branding, but the market still needs proof that the commercial model can scale. Investors need to watch project economics, customer commitments, cost inflation, regulatory progress, and whether future deployments actually move from presentation slides into real construction and real revenue. The ticker is powerful, but obvious does not always mean best risk-reward. Now let's move to BWXT. BWX Technologies is not the sexiest nuclear ticker on this list, and that is exactly why it deserves attention. BWXT is not trying to trade purely on SMR hype. It is a mature nuclear technology, engineering, and manufacturing business with exposure to nuclear components, fuel, government work, naval nuclear propulsion, and commercial nuclear infrastructure. The company says it has manufactured naval nuclear components and reactors since the 1950s, and its investor materials describe BWXT as a U.S.-based nuclear solutions company serving global security, clean energy, environmental restoration, nuclear medicine, and space exploration. That is a different kind of nuclear exposure. Less moonshot, more business quality, less hype, more execution credibility. BWXT may not double just because one nuclear headline goes viral. But if the nuclear revival becomes a real long-term infrastructure trend, companies with actual nuclear manufacturing expertise may matter more than companies with only a future promise. This is the picks and shovels logic. When everyone is chasing the flashiest reactor story, sometimes the stronger business is the supplier that already knows how to operate in a nuclear ecosystem. BWXT is not the loudest trade, but it may be one of the most real businesses on this list. Now the fifth name is Cameco, ticker CCJ. Cameco is not an SMR company. That is important. If you're looking for a pure small modular reactor exposure, CCJ is not that. But if the nuclear revival is real, fuel may be one of the most important bottlenecks in the entire story. Cameco describes itself as one of the largest global providers of uranium fuel needed for nuclear energy, with investments across the nuclear fuel cycle. That gives CCJ a very different role in the watch list. It is not selling the most futuristic reactor dream. It is tied to the nuclear fuel chain reality. If more nuclear reactors are built, extended, restarted, or supported over time, uranium and fuel cycle exposure could remain strategically important. That does not make CCJ risk-free. Uranium stocks can be cyclical. Commodity pricing matters. Geopolitics matters. Contracting cycles matter. Valuation still matters. But compared with early-stage SMR names, the business model may feel more grounded. This is not an SMR stock. But if nuclear demand rises, the fuel chain may be one of the more realistic ways to play the theme. So let's compare the 5 names directly. NNE has the highest speculation and the strongest retail moonshot energy. Oklo has a powerful advanced nuclear narrative, but a long execution timeline. SMR has the most obvious ticker and direct SMR exposure, but it still needs more commercial validation. BWXT has the best mature nuclear infrastructure quality. CCJ has the best nuclear fuel chain comparison, even though it is not an SMR company. These stocks should not be treated as equal risk. They are not interchangeable. NNE is not BWXT. Oklo is not CCJ. SMR is not a guaranteed winner, just because the ticker is perfect. And Cameco is not a pure SMR trade, just because it benefits from nuclear attention. Before the final ranking, we need to be clear about risk. SMR commercialization may take longer than investors expect. Regulation can delay projects. Capital needs can dilute shareholders. Some companies may have limited near-term revenue. Valuation can detach from fundamentals. Nuclear hype can reverse quickly. High-beta nuclear stocks can fall much harder than the index. Fuel chain stocks are not the same as SMR stocks. A watch list is not the same thing as a buy signal. Position sizing matters. Nothing in this video is financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. This is market commentary and research for education. Now here is my ranking from number 5 to number 1. At number 5, I have NNE. Not because the story is impossible, but because this is the most speculative name on the list. NNE has the moonshot appeal. It has the retail energy. It has the kind of story that can attract momentum when nuclear headlines are hot. But it also has the weakest risk control. For me, this is a high-risk watch list name, not a core nuclear exposure. At number 4, I have Oklo. The narrative is powerful. The market attention is real. And the connection to advanced nuclear power fits perfectly with the AI electricity theme. But the timeline risk is also real. Oklo may be one of the cleanest advanced nuclear stories, but investors still need to see execution, regulatory progress, financing discipline, and commercial proof. At number 3, I have SMR. NuScale has the cleanest ticker and one of the most direct SMR identities in the market. If nuclear headlines heat up, SMR can get attention fast. But obvious does not always mean best risk-reward. The market still needs more proof that the commercial model can scale at attractive economics. At number 2, I have CCJ. This is not an SMR stock. But if nuclear demand rises, the fuel chain may be one of the more realistic ways to play the theme. Cameco gives investors exposure to the uranium and nuclear fuel cycle side of the story, which may matter even if the SMR timeline takes longer than expected. At number 1, I have BWXT. It may not have the wildest moonshot upside. It may not be the stock that gets the loudest retail hype, but it gives me the best balance of nuclear exposure, business quality, execution credibility, and risk control. BWXT is the kind of name that fits the nuclear revival without depending entirely on one futuristic reactor promise. That matters. So here is the big takeaway. The SMR trade may be explosive, but explosive does not mean safe. The best investors do not just chase the most exciting ticker. They separate narrative from execution. They separate hype from business quality. They separate a watch list from a buy signal. And they understand that the second-order AI trade may not only be about who builds the chips. It may also be about who powers the entire machine. If AI data centers keep demanding reliable, long-term, 24/7 electricity, nuclear power could become one of the most important second-order AI trades in the market. But not every nuclear stock is the same trade. Some are moonshots. Some are fuel chain plays. Some are real infrastructure businesses. And the question is not which stock has the loudest story. The question is which stock has the best balance between narrative, execution, and risk. If you want more second-order market breakdowns like this, subscribe to Stock Breakout, hit the like button, and comment which nuclear stock you would rank number 1. NNE, Oklo, SMR, BWXT, or CCJ.